Good morning, everyone. My name is Howard. This is Patrick, and this is our presentation on the city of Atlanta for 2050. So this is the outline of the presentation. So we'll do a background of the city, followed by the vision for 2050, and our design for different elements of the city, followed by the urban metabolism and the greenhouse gas emissions, the sustainable development goal 11, followed by the conclusion. So background. So the city of Atlanta is located in the state of Georgia, which is on the southeastern part of the United States, as you can see here. This is the map of the metropolitan area of Atlanta, and this is the various neighborhoods within the city. So Atlanta currently has a population around 450,000 people for 2017, and it's projected to grow to 1.3 million by 2050, which is almost a 3 times increase. So as you can see on this graph, the blue line is the population growth, and the orange is the population density, which is projected to grow at a similar rate. And the city area is not projected to change and remain constant at 345 square kilometers. These are some of the existing plans that we have identified for the city. Most of them overlap with each other, but we have taken relevant bits from each and applied it to our design. So for our vision, so this is our vision for Atlanta for 2050. So in terms of transportation, we envision like a universally accessible and equitable public transportation system. For buildings, implementation of a variety of green building measures such as green roofs. For water and wastewater, initiatives such as rainwater harvesting, and for waste management, initiatives such as zero waste zone, which promotes reducing waste in major commercial areas of the city.
So now we'll look at some key aspects of our actual design, starting with buildings. So in Atlanta, they have already quite a developed city, so their issues with their buildings are mostly that they have a lot of existing aging infrastructure and existing unsustainable buildings, and they're not really putting sustainability in their new developments as well. So in terms of buildings, for the existing buildings, we want to do some sort of retrofits to improve their energy efficiency, so things like solar shading to reflect solar gains in the summer. Also, you can use radiant heating in your floors as opposed to forced air to save on 30% of your heating energy. We also looked at green roofs, so green roofs can have insulation to your roofs for existing buildings, up to 44% depending on the level of insulation of the existing building. And we also looked at solar VICZ to actually have our buildings creating their own renewable energy. We also looked at new buildings. So for new buildings, we looked at using ground source heat pumps to provide renewable heating and cooling for the buildings, as well as rainwater harvesting, so the buildings can actually collect their own water and use it for purposes such as irrigation. So this is actually an example of a building that we found that already existed in Atlanta, and this is kind of the idea that we're having for future buildings by 2050, using technologies such as shading, green roofs, and other of those examples initiatives.
Okay, so I'll be talking about the transportation aspect of the city. So currently, Atlanta suffers from significant traffic congestion. Because of the excessive urban sprawl, it promotes higher car dependency. So it is the 4th most congested city in the United States and 8th in the world. So the map down here is a sample rush hour traffic for Atlanta. You can see it's very congested, and drivers spend an awful lot of time stuck in traffic. So one of our main goals was to factor in the equitable development of transportation. So this is the green part is the predominantly black populated areas of the city, and then the blue part is the predominantly white populated areas of the city. And if you compare that to the median household income, you can see it's very heavily segregated along the race aspect of the city. So we looked at that when we were designing our transportation. We also looked at the supporting land use for any future transit development. So the left-hand side, we have the residential growth from 2017 to 2050. The purplish is the lowest growth, and the red is the highest growth, and the red is the implemented growth. So we took that into consideration when we're designing the system. So this is our proposed public transit system for 2050. So the blue, red, and yellow is the pre-existing heavy rail system. The orange is the proposed heavy rail system that connects to various parts of the city. And then the green is the supporting public transit lines such as light rail transit or bus rapid transit. We also looked at the streetscape of the city. So because it's very heavily car dependent and car-oriented design, we tried to shift that away from cars and focus more on public transit and for active transportation. So you can see we have space for bike lanes, wider sidewalks, space allocated for streetcars and buses instead of cars. So for land use, Atlanta also has a very low population density. So this map shows the population density being very low. The purple is the lowest possible population density, and even in downtown area, it's not that high. So we're trying to fix this. And compared to other cities, major cities in the United States, it's very low. We also looked at the street pattern. So in the 1900s, it was gridiron fashion, but then now most of Atlanta has the lollipops on the stick design, which is very heavily car-oriented and doesn't allow people to use travel quickly throughout the neighborhood. So we are trying to change that. So we're trying to look at centralizing public transit inside neighborhoods and incorporating them into the streets, as well as increasing pedestrian accessibility. So this is our sample design network for 2050. The yellow areas on the outskirts of the city is the low density residential. The green is the medium to high residential areas, the blue being the commercial areas, and the red being the industrial areas. The gray lines are the highways, the red ones are the heavy rail proposed systems, and then we're envisioning an extensive use of light rail transit to the neighborhoods of the city because of the low population density.
We also looked at the neighborhood scales, more of like a local context. And Atlanta's neighborhoods have kind of four major issues. The first being that they're very suburban and very low density, so they're very car dependent. As Howard has said, their street pattern is mostly fully developed now, and it's mostly in a lollipop style, so there's not a lot of connectivity between their streets. Green spaces are also not very well connected, and there's not really good accessibility to sustainable transit. So one thing we really want to focus on in our neighborhood level is promoting active transport. So we want to make sure there's safe and healthy transport options. We want to make sure there's room for infrastructure such as protected bike lanes, good walking infrastructure. And we are anticipating that will increase our walking and cycling commuting by about 1% to 5% by 2050. So looking at a sample neighborhood design, this is a Grove Park neighborhood that already exists in Atlanta. You can see they have some promising aspects such as a lot of green space, but kind of disconnected. And they also are starting to lack a grid pattern, which is reducing their accessibility. And also all the orange here is residential land use, so it's a lot of suburban sprawl. So by 2050, we're hoping that we can kind of develop more of a commercial mixed use. It's a bit hard because these are homes and residential, the residential areas, so it's hard to kind of redevelop that kind of zoning. But to make it more accessible, we're envisioning that we can connect these green spaces and turn them into kind of like accessible active transport corridors throughout the neighborhood.
So in terms of energy, Atlanta currently uses a lot of coal for its electrical generation. So in this graph, it shows that a lot of it has been used coal recently until natural gas has been taking more and more share of the electrical production. And in 2017, Atlanta used a total of 12 billion watt hours. And by 2050, we're envisioning this number to increase to 13. But we believe this is justifiable because of the significant population increase, which is 3 times. So it didn't increase that much. By 2050, we also envision phasing out coal. And in this graph, this shows the 2016 coal, energy mix. And then we envision it to turn like that, where we envision more use of natural gas and renewable energy and significant decrease in coal. For energy infrastructure, on the left-hand side, you see a diagram which shows like a connected system between individual homes and the energy utility companies. So by doing this, the energy companies will be able to better identify peaks and shocks in the system throughout the day and better adjust to that and be more efficient. And on the right, we envision the use of microgrids. So instead of having a centralized electrical production system, we're going to envision microgrids in every single individual residential or offices through solar power or wind power. And this will allow the system to better adjust to sudden peaks by producing individual powers. So yeah, this will increase reliability of the system. So in terms of energy mix, in 2017 it was mostly natural gas, followed by coal, renewable, and nuclear. By 2050, we believe that natural gas will be still the most important one, but significant increase in renewable, decrease in coal, and decrease in nuclear. So in terms of energy intensity, in 2017 it was 0.97 kilowatt hours per GDP, but by 2050, with the reduction of coal usage, we envision this to decrease by half to 0.5.
Looking into our water design, Atlanta already has quite enough infrastructure to handle their water distribution and their water treatment, but their main issue is their source of water. And their source of water is mostly managed by the whole state of Georgia. And they mostly get it from the rivers and lakes. So they have kind of like 2 large basins where they collect their water. And the issue is that these 2 basins are also shared with Alabama and Florida, and Georgia is kind of like the upstate to get access to the water first.
So actually, about last year, Atlanta was basically approved to basically take as much water as they want from these rivers and lakes, which is kind of an issue for the downstream cities. But that should be able to meet the water demand by 2050. So we're hoping that we can not only decrease their demand to kind of relieve issues for other cities, but also they don't really have any emergency reservoirs in the city. So we're looking at utilizing quarries that are found around the metro area. So they have actually one developed quarry in the city that they're using for water storage, the Bellwoods Quarry, and there's about 20 different similar ones around the metro area that we're hoping to utilize.
In terms of waste, you're surprised to know that Atlanta doesn't actually have a composting system, and they only provide recycling to single-family homes. So by 2050, we're hoping that there'll be a citywide composting and recycling system, just so it'll be more affordable and more public participation. And we're seeing that we'll be able to decrease about 40% of Atlanta's solid waste. We're also hoping that this would significantly decrease methane release from landfills. So taking into consideration all these different designs, we compared our 2017 metabolism to our 2050. Our 2017 was quite simple. We didn't really know the city too well, so we can't really find many loops or many kind of interconnected technologies. But by 2050, we were able to really know how the city functioned and kind of find these different connections between all the different sources. So we can see a loop created here with solid waste and the recycling and compost, decreases in energy use from buildings, transportation, and electricity production has also decreased our GHGs. So in total, how does this affect our GHG emissions? We started out with about 9 million metric tons. That's 19.2 metric tons per capita. And we were kind of sad because by the end of our calculations, we actually went up to 12 million, but then we realized per capita, our population actually tripled, so we've done about 44% decrease per capita. We also want to look at how this relates to our Sustainable Development Goal 11. We basically chose two targets. We have 12 minutes on our clock. Yeah. So the first thing we looked at was provide access to safe, affordable, accessible signal transfer systems. So we've chosen this by making sure that we have a minimum 1,000-meter walking distance from our transit stops, and we utilize accessible transport infrastructure, and we had different fares to make sure it was affordable to all different populations. The other goal we looked at was environmental impact, so you should have decreased per capita environmental impacts, both in air quality and waste management. And we've done this by reducing significantly our emissions with transportation, and we also improved our waste management with recycling and composting. So in conclusion, these are some of the strategies that we have identified for each sector of the city in terms of building, transportation, land use, etc. And we believe that by using these innovative and sustainable technologies to promote a healthy development and growth, Atlanta has the potential to meet our vision for 2050 and be a model for cities in the world.